Welcome back to episode 58 of The Boring Show. Don't worry if you haven't watched the first 57. This is a perfectly good episode for us to start on. My name is Khanh, and I'm here with Craig.
Yeah. And though actually you might not want to start with 58. You might want to start with 57 because we are continuing from the last episode. We're picking up where we last saw our heroes. So why don't we just briefly re-summarize, Khanh, what we did in the last episode.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about the ground that we hope to cover today.
Alrighty. So for basically the entirety of episode 57, we were working on our size picker widget, which is this widget that you see right here in the MyDash app. So we have the selector here that lets you pick, a specific size of the product you want to buy, and then you can go ahead and add to cart. So primarily with size picker, a lot of refactoring and, changes were made thanks to Craig, who essentially team effort. So we've essentially made size picker more reusable. We made it essentially not just tied to a size picker. So we essentially made it into an options picker so that in the future, say for example, we wanted to introduce, multiple color options for certain products, we can use the size picker again to be able to select the color options as well and not just the size. So we talked about in the last episode, we needed to rename the size picker. It's still size picker right now, so we'll jump into that and do that. But essentially, we rewrote the build method to be a little bit more straightforward. We have the widget using a set now so that you could potentially use the widget for multiple selections in the future, even though right now products we only use it to select one option. Did I forget anything, Craig?
No, I think that was an excellent summary.
All right.
And yes, as you mentioned, the rename is, I think, a great place to start.
Okay. All right. So what do we want to call it? Like option picker?
Options
Picker. Right, because we have the single selector as well.
Right.
So let's call this options picker.
I think that's good.
Here. And then up here. Do we want a single size picker? I think we should rename size picker as well.
Yeah, I think there should be single option picker.
Single option picker. Okay. Let's see, single option picker. There we go.
Great.
All right.
Wow.
So I think
that's much faster than it was last time.
Yeah, the first time we ran it last time, it took its grand old time.
It did.
So yeah, I think that should do it. What do you think about moving our option picker out into a separate file in terms of file organization? Because right now I have about 5 different widgets in this one product file.
Yeah, at some point, and now could be the time. I think it would behoove us.
Yes.
To give this widget its own file.
All right, so let me see where we are. So we essentially want all of that options picker.
And probably grab the single variant as well.
And then options picker here. So then we want to go all the way up here. So single option picker and just take that, right?
Yeah, nice.
We're going to take that. And where should this go? So I was thinking we were going to put it in shared just because in the future, if we want to reuse it, like I mentioned, like for say either checkout method or if any new features get added. In the future, we can just pull it from shared. Let's see. What do we call it? Let's see. Options picker.
I love it.
Here.
Paste that in. I need to import material.
Oh, that's what we need. Import. Let's go here.
Yeah,
material.
Sometimes it'll autocomplete. Yeah, there you go. Nice.
And then I need to make sure to delete that. There you go.
I do the same thing.
There has to be a better way to add that, but that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I feel the same way about it. All right, so you also need to add it to your barrel file.
Yes, let's see here. Export. And fun fact, y'all, so Craig was the one who introduced me to barrel files, and now I basically use it everywhere. So thank you, Craig.
Well, thank you, material.dart, which is the barrel file to rule them all. And that is where I picked up the trick.
Cool.
So,
all right, so let's check here.
Yeah, now we need to import the
Let's see.
shared.
Let's see, import. Oh, I need to move. So packages, I have imports. This is very disorganized. This is one of the things that I really should take care of. But that will be a later issue for us. Shared.dart. Here we go.
Great.
Save that here, and I think we should
All right.
be good.
Yeah, we're back in business
Yes.
and ready to further genericize our options picker.
We should have thought to do this before because I realize now that we have in a separate file, I wouldn't get lost as easily scrolling through all of our code. But, you know, live and you learn.
So, yeah, let me also, while we're at this, I need to open this new file as well. Shared OptionsPicker. There we go. So, where we last saw our heroes, which I am a little biased and like to say, where we were last working on the now defunct size picker, newly minted option picker. We basically just kind of streamlined whether or not you can pick one or more and handled how that gets wired into the rest of the state management. But to be truly reusable, I think we're going to need to have custom types for what we're picking. And for that, I think we're going to need to open up the world of generics.
Okay.
So we were talking before, and this is going to be, Khanh, is this your first time with thinking about generics in Dart?
Indeed, yes.
Okay. And
so Craig mentioned it, and I was like, Craig, can you clarify what is going on here?
And Khanh and I both come from a Python background, which also doesn't have, well, actually it kind of does now with type annotations, but this is, you know, it was new to me when I got into strongly typed languages. And I think, Khanh, you're just right where I was not too long ago. So anyway, a generic, when you make a list or a set or a map in Dart and you type those little angled thingy things, and then you put various types in those. You know, if it's a map, you put 2. If it's a list or a set, you put 1. That is, you're doing, you know, the other side of generics. It's like the consumer side of generics. But you can also go on the supply side and write your own class that uses generics. So the idea is, you know, you don't just have lists in Dart. You want to know, you have a list of what, right? You don't just have sets. We're not just throwing around the dynamic type here, right? You have a set of what. And we can also have an options picker of a specific thing. And we can use that ourselves to not have to use strings all the time. Because you could imagine that like a string is maybe flexible enough to be your kind of one type fits all, you know, solution. But your state management is going to be downloading classes, you know, it's going to be downloading objects from the server and hydrating those into your classes. You might have some enums. And so I think inevitably, eventually strings are going to get a little rickety. Yeah. Our code will more quickly show kind of wear and tear if we just try to coerce strings into being our kind of central type forever. So enough rambling. Do you want to type or would you like me to type?
Let's split it. Why don't you start off and then I can tack on later, or I can start off now and you can take over later. So
okay,
I'm good with either.
Another thing I'm realizing here, we've got this size options variable. Why don't we just rename this to options?
Yes.
So I'll do this right now. Just put these. I was in the, I'll do that in the single picker. I was in the regular picker. These are now just called options.
There we go. Yep.
Great. And I'm very good at typing. All right. So, and then set size. This isn't set size anymore. This will now be set option. So let's rename set size to set option. And then there could be one more because we had set single size. So this will now be set single option. Set single option. There we go.
So I see a sizes dot first here. So I'm gonna.
Never heard of that. Oh, well, this would just be options. Yeah, great catch. So this would be options.
So maybe it'll be a good bet to just Command F for size and see where we use. So we do use size in
all over the place.
Quite a few places. So maybe before we jump into generics,
get the word size out of this file.
We may need to remove all of the occurrences of size.
Okay, so I'm down in the option picker state class. We've got selected sizes. This will now just become selected options. I'm pressing Command D to highlight every instance of the underscore selected sizes token. And I'm just going to type selected options.
Options, okay.
And then size list, same thing, Command D, grab them all like Pokemon, and option list. That really feels like it should be options list.
Yes.
Options.
There we go.
All right. There's one. Size options.
Size options is now.
That's just
options.
Options. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm not getting a lot of linting on my end, so you're getting these helpful red undersquigglies.
Yes. Let's see. So that's Command D. I think you said it was options.
Okay. Nice. Any other
size
things that I've missed?
All right, let's see here. So I'll jump down here. So I believe this is now set option.
Set option, yeah.
Selected size names. Selection. So it's selected.
Option names.
Did options names. That?
Probably singular. Selected option. No, I don't know. Selected options names. Option names.
Options names.
Yeah. English.
All right.
Maybe not a good language.
Okay, cool. And then I think this is here. We'll replace your size with options.
Yep. So I've realized my editor has just wildly desynced. Let me see if I can refresh this and catch up to you.
Maybe. There's some errors here.
I just attempted to do the hot restart. That's what happened. But the edits that you're making are not landing for me. Are they? Yeah, no, they aren't. I'm just going to re-click the link that you sent me and see if it starts working again.
All right. Meanwhile, so much single option picker.
Connection may have been a little
So we have a few errors here, but I'm guessing that's because we just renamed a whole bunch of things. And so we're in progress.
Oh, right. No, because we passed in where this widget was used.
Right, over here.
Right, because I didn't use the refactor command like a smart person, like you did. So size options, that's now just options.
Option picker, size options. This is just options.
Yep, and then set single
options here.
Option.
All
I think is what we went with.
Set single, and then so this here just becomes option.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Good catch, Craig.
Now we still have an options list. Oh, probably a whole. Yeah. I'm optimistic.
Restart that, and I believe it looks like we are good to go.
Woohoo!
Gotta love all those print statements, folks. All right. Okay. That means it works. Let's check our bag. It's there. We are solid.
Okay, so let's go back into OptionsPicker.dart and let's make sure that the share is working. All right, we're in the same spot, so let me type. Great, it's showing.
There you go.
Up.
I think we're synced up.
Amazing. All right, it's time for generics. So we want to say that this is not always and forever going to be an options picker of strings.
Okay.
Instead, it's an options picker of type T.
All right, let me find where you are here. We are here. All right, options of here.
I'll just retype it.
Yeah.
So to specify that your class is going to use generics, you type the same curlies that we're all used to typing when we define a list, when we instantiate a list. But here we're doing it in the class definition. So we define a class of options picker, and then we give it a generic, which is specified by these two carets or greater than less than sign. And then in the middle, we just put some placeholder that's going to represent the type to be defined later. And the whole point is that inside the options picker, we don't know what it is. Now the convention, actually there are several different conventions. You can kind of write whatever you want. A very common one is to just use the letter T which I imagine stands for type.
Makes sense.
I don't know what else it would stand for. So we now have an options picker of type T. We're not using T anywhere yet, so we've functionally not done anything so far, but we're about to. In the last episode, we set the function signatures of our set option and our set single option functions. We kind of expanded on those and we defined the parameters. This is a great time to say, well, strings used to be the be all end all type for set option, but now we got this T thing. So we're actually going to return in our set option function a set of whatever T ends up being. And then we're going to do the same thing. We don't want to just accept a map of strings and integers. We'll keep the integers thing. That was the quantity in inventory. That'll persist, but T is what we want instead now. So our options are whatever this future to be defined type is. And we're committed while we're in this class and while we're working on this ourselves, we're committed to not knowing what T is. Any questions so far as we're going?
Yeah, so I just want to jump in and quickly clarify, like to make sure the understanding is correct here. So like say, for example, T could be either size, so like that could be like a class, like the type that you're using, or it could be something like say color, right? So then that way you could like jump around and use it for whatever type you want, but you still maintain the same functionality. You're not just tied to having a string, which could be a little bit dicey if we're just using strings like for the entire options picker. So say, for example, using a string, I could mix up, say, colors and sizes, and I wouldn't know any better because there's no class to tell me, oh, you're not supposed to be specifying a color there versus, say, like a size or something like that.
Exactly, yes. Okay. Yep, that's a great point. If in your UI where you had a size picker and a color picker right below it, and you just kind of flipped them, Khanh was just pointing out that like the strings, type matching will keep working the whole way through. It's like, well, we had some strings before, we have some strings now.
They're the same.
Right. And then like, woe is your user after they try to set the color that they want to be extra large and, nothing makes any sense. So,
and everything explodes.
Right.
It probably won't explode, but you would probably don't want a color of medium,
So we have our options list here. This is now going to be a list of type T. Right, and this will need to kind of persist here. So we'll grab T, put that on the state class, and then we'll say this is a state of, it extends state for option picker of, again, type T. So we're going to wire this all the way through. And to kind of continually make the linter happy and just ourselves, we'll also put T in these places. So you can use T when you initialize classes, and you can use it when you just define return types or define classes themselves. So by the way, this generic is what is always going on in a state class. When you say, I want to make I want to make a state class and hook it up to one of my stateless widgets, you're using generics when you tell Flutter which stateless widget are we even talking about. So we're just kind of doing more of this magic ourselves. Okay, so T is showing up here, and basically we're going on a string squashing campaign. And anytime we had a string, we now have a T. So we'll just maybe call this key, and this will be key as well. Now, one thing that was really nice about using strings is that they were very easily displayed. So we're going to cut a corner here and just write toString. And you could, you could kind of have some class that guarantees to know how to display itself in a user-friendly way. And I, of course, would recommend that. But for now, we'll just use key.toString. And that'll keep this line going. And then we scroll down, and the linter will tell us if we've done anything else wrong. All the way at the bottom,
here.
We've got some more stuff that's upset. So selected option names. Oh, right, of course. It's no longer a set of strings.
It's T.
It's a set of T. Yep. And then all of this code starts to work. Now, if we go back up to the top, my linter's not working, but I bet yours is.
Right.
And we are going to need to add this same generic to single option picker. So let's say of type T.
Yep.
And you don't put it in the constructor, by the way. You don't re-specify it there. But then we'll come down, and our options are going to be a map of T to their inventory count. Our set single option will take a single T. Now, this is interesting because we note here that we've got some errors here. Let's hover over this and see what it says.
All right.
Couldn't infer type T. Now this is potentially mysterious, but all you have to do is just say that it's a T. And then of course, this is now going to take a set of T's. And we've now made this entire option picker and the single option picker variant to be ready to work with different data types. Now, Khanh, I'm going to pass the control back to you for updating the code where we actually use the option picker in your page. I think it was product.dart.
Yes, it is. So I'm just going to give it a quick hot restart here because we just swapped out a bunch of parameters there. So it was going to be trouble.
Yeah, so I think here. Now, interestingly, even before we make the following change, and we can see, because Khanh has already restarted the app, that nothing breaks. So the change that we're about to make, and which I do recommend you make, is technically not required. And that change is to specify what T is at the moment where we use the widget.
Right.
So just like you've made a million lists before and you type list, less than sign, whatever is going in the list, then greater than sign, we're going to do the same thing here. So we've typed single option picker, a little less than sign.
We want that here, so we'll say something like this would be string.
Exactly.
And then so that's just more so you actually can see, like glancing over the code. It's easier to pick out.
Now, interestingly, why was this not required to specify before? And that is because Dart's type system has great inference. We got that one error at one point. It said, oh, you haven't told me enough. I couldn't infer T. But oftentimes it will be able to. And how did it know in this case? Well, the options variable that we're passing is a map of something to integers. And so Dart is able to say, well, I bet that something is what T is. And so it knew that the whole thing was strings. And so then that meant for set single option, that function also better, take a single something of T. Well, it's like, well, the other thing was a string, and this is a function that has to match that. So it better be a string, which it was. And so even before we fully specified that single option picker is of type string, it had kind of already figured it out. But for readability and just to keep things safe, or keep things clear, I think it is good to specify how we've done here. Now, that's generics, Khanh.
Cool.
We did it.
Awesome. Okay.
And oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, so I was wondering, we can just take this now and say add a color picker, right? Like we have generics, that's in place. So you can just swap out sizes for colors and we should be okay.
Yep, that sure is correct.
Okay.
So why don't we do it?
All right, so if say, all right, I'll just copy this here. And let me jump down so we have some, actually, let me copy this entire thing so we have some padding in between. All right, so here. So we could make these colors or we can keep it strings for now. But, so let me see here. So I'm going to make just a.
Yeah, what are you thinking between those two?
Yeah.
Personally, I think if we use actual colors.
Actual colors?
That'll be more fun.
Yeah. Sure, let's do it. Let's use actual colors then. I think that would work. So let me, let's say set color or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Nice, yeah.
Let's just have something here. We'll add to that later. And now we can have something to just pass through.
Okay, yep, keep going.
So here, let's say let's give this set color here. Here.
Oh no, we don't want to call it.
We don't need to know. Yeah, we just need to pass it through. Void.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's a problem. All right.
But also first, let's change the generic on this one to say color.
Yes, that would be a good place to do that.
Okay, so now here we can see you would no longer be able to accidentally swap these widgets because the generic is telling us, hey, I don't think you did it right.
That's not gonna work. All right, cool.
All right, so we've got a couple things, that we need to figure out. Now, also, it's good that we're not launching a real e-commerce business here because the whole idea of having inventory of colors and inventory of sizes as separate things, like that's not how shirts work.
No, definitely not. We would not. That was not a merchandising shop that you want to manage.
Yeah, no. Shopify would be like, your schema is weird. But hey, for this app, we'll pretend that's how shirts work.
It'll work for now.
But okay. With that aside, let's think about how we can make these variables happy. What do you think we should do?
Well, for sure. So options, we need to swap that instead of having, strings for the keys. We want to have colors, right? And then integers. So let's see, color dot. Let's see trying to see. So this introduces an issue, a small issue.
What are you anticipating?
Right. So it could be, so the fact that here we're saying from an RGB value, right, with the alpha. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, I don't know can we do so if we do a 2-string, is that going to give us a human readable string for when we display it on the app? Or is it going to give me, a bunch of numbers that
hex values
is not hex values that's not your average person off the street is gonna look at. It's like, oh, this website has totally been hacked.
Indeed, it won't do the good thing. But I think that is another attribute or another concern that we can kind of tackle down the road. Because we could potentially create a new class called presentable color.
Yeah, like our UI color, something like that has that RGB, maybe I guess
or just a human readable
in general, yeah. I mean, in general, I don't believe, I've never been involved with, a shop, sort of like an online merchandising store, but I don't believe they keep the hex values for the merchandise, actual merchandise colors. So
you got to have names like desert sand and brushed graphite.
I would totally buy a sweatshirt in brushed graphite.
Right?
So if anyone's ever trying to sell me a sweatshirt, that's what you need to offer it in. Okay, cool.
Now, I think we can do also, if we have real hex, if we have real colors that actual shirts are, then, we'd want to potentially put in their exact hex values.
Yeah.
But because all of this is made up, we can potentially even just use very simple things like colors.blue, colors.green, and just kind of keep that moving.
Okay, so we can do that. Okay, so let's do colors.blue. All right. So we want it to be, we can say 5.
A couple of those, yeah, great.
Colors.black. Can never go wrong with a black sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So let's say there's 9 of those.
Matches with everything.
Yeah. Colors dots. We're gonna go some pink here. All right. So let's say there's 10 of those.
Great.
And let's give it one more.
Right.
So let's say something like orange, and say there's 4 here.
Love it.
Cool. And then we can just save that.
So now the type system is happy with us. It loves us again.
Yes.
And set single option. So what do we think is going on with this one?
Single option. The argument type void function can be assigned. Remember, type. Go back up and see what I wrote.
So this was the value of us enforcing the function, the full signatures of the callbacks that we pass in. Exactly. This has
to be color, and then this would be color.
Whatever. Yeah, perfect.
Yes. That gives us something.
So check back. That should make the other thing happy again.
All right. Let's see, I think we should be good. Yes, and that's okay. That looks
the
amazing.
UI of our dreams.
Don't you love it when you go online shopping, and it tells you the color of your sweatshirt is material color, primary value color, 0xFF something, and then, it says, it's overflowed.
Nice.
So that's not quite what we wanted.
No. So we just talked about the presentable color or UI color. Why don't we just do that?
Yes.
Let's just do that right away.
So so do we want to, so we can create a new class, right? And just call it, say, like presentable color or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any data classes anywhere?
Yeah. So I have that. Let's see. Let's go in.
API, nice.
Let's see. Close UI. Config. So we can go here. I think I should separate it out, but I think I shoved it all into API. So I'm just going to make it in here for now, and then we can refactor that a little bit later.
Okay.
So let's see, presentable.
I like UI just because it's
UI?
shorter. I like yours
Okay.
actually more. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. UI.
Or shirt colors.
Product colors.
Product colors.
Product color.
That's really good. Yeah.
Product color .dart. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm thinking we can do something like class product color. Pull this here. And so we jump back to here. So we can pull.
Well, let's worry about this later.
Okay.
Because remember the product color, we're not going to instantiate all the values
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
We're just defining the concept of a product color.
Yeah. So let's say we can have a string that is the readable color, right?
Yep.
So what do we want? What would we call that? Like just color? Name. Okay.
Yeah.
Name. Okay. And what else do we want? String.
A color.
That would be important.
Mm-hmm.
And then is
I
there anything else?
think that's literally it.
Because we just want to map like the hue. Yeah.
But there are, I think that's enough for fields.
Yeah.
But there's a few more things we do need to do in
Yes.
this file. We got to import
Yes.
material.
Let's import material. That is the.
This class needs a constructor.
Yep. Okay. Here we are. That.
I don't know why that's making me so sad.
All right. Eeyore over here.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna construct product color.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
Well, we'll probably just do this dot for each thing.
Oh, that works too. Okay.
Yeah.
This dot.
Well, I mean, in the constructor.
Oh, here.
That's the one.
This dot. This dot name. And then this dot color, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And are you feeling positional or named parameters for this class?
I feel like because of how I've been using Flutter, I feel like I'm used to named as opposed to
Same.
positional, but
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to you.
No, we're vibing.
Okay.
Let's do named.
No, let's dot name. So that would be just equals name, right?
Well, we say we just want curlies.
Curly. Oh, right. Okay. That's okay.
Yep.
That would do it. Thank you.
And then we'll need to say specify each one is required.
That here. Add this here and then there.
Okay. Now we can get rid of the whole body there of that.
There we go.
Love it.
Semicolon.
Now, there's two other changes that I would recommend we do with this class. Actually, there's three.
Yeah.
The first one is I think it'll be nice if this class is an old-timey officer of the law, a constable. I think this class should be constable. So let's put the const keyword in front of the constructor.
Yes. Here. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm still laughing at you. Okay, there we go.
And now that will require that all the fields be final.
Final,
so for
yes,
for string and color, that'll be final.
Okay. Update
Okay.
that.
I think that was 2 of the 3. No. Nah, I can't remember. But at least the third one is we know that we're using toString in that widget.
Yes.
So why don't we add a fancier return, a toString method that just returns the name.
All right, let's string. It's toString. Let's see here. Okay, here. Return
Name.
name. And that should be good.
Nice. And this will want us to specify that it's an override.
Yes. override. There we go.
Sweet. Okay. Product color awaits us. Is there a barrel file we need to add this to?
I believe so. Actually, no, there is not. I did not use barrel files for this one.
All right. Well, that'll be future cons problem.
That will be a future cons problem. Wait, why don't we start it now so that so we can just call this.
It'll be current cons problem.
Yes, it'll be current cons problem so that later con doesn't regret all of her decisions again, like I did in the refactoring Learning to Fly episode. All right, so we're gonna export, and we're gonna say that's ProductColor.dart, and then I'll add the other files later.
Okay, this is a happy compromise.
This is like a compromise of current con and later cons problems. All right, so let me pull up here. Let's see.
2 more dots.
We have to go more dot. The one more. There we go.
Yep.
API and API.dart, and we should be okay. I really need to reorganize that. Okay, so
you do.
If we go down, I definitely did not say that 2 episodes in a row.
Well, that's good.
All right. Okay, so we're back down here. We're back down here.
So product color now, right?
So yes, this would become then product color. All right, here.
Yeah, we've got the 2.
All right, so if we go back here, assuming that requires a name and a color. So, see, name, we're just gonna call this, say, blue?
Dash blue.
Dash blue, okay.
Let's go.
Okay, Shams will not be happy about me that I'm using just a random blue color. So there is a very specific value for dash blue. So we'll call this dash blue, but Shams, don't worry. I know that there's an actual, like actual hex value that represents dash blue.
Okay, I'm looking it up.
But I don't know it off the top of my head. Shame on me. So let's pass this here.
Con, I really don't want you to feel bad about not knowing that that hex code off the top of your head.
Map of type color.
Google doesn't know what I'm talking about. So.
All right. I believe Sham sent it to me a while ago for MyDash. So I should have. It's probably somewhere in here, in the code base. But we'll save that for a little bit later.
Yeah. That's another.
All right. I'm just gonna add these here. Let's see here. Nope, I did not want to open that. All right. Okay. So just gonna add this here. Add that black. In here. Did I?
That doesn't seem.
See colors.
I don't think we want the closing quote.
Black. Yeah, I think that's
and then we want
a little bit too far ahead. Product color.
And then we'll need to give the color needs to be in. Yeah, there you go.
There.
Nice.
All right, so we keep going here. Name. Let's give that pink color and pop that over here.
That closing quote, or the closing parenthesis is actually not in the right spot. The first line with the dash blue.
Here, yes, that was
shows the correct way.
No.
That one was correct.
Oh, wait, give me one sec here. Color.
So Command-Z.
Like here. Whoa.
Nope.
No. I'm really.
You're going further in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Wait, what did I do?
Abort.
Wait, okay.
Why won't you type Command-Z?
Command-Z. Okay, hold on. Okay. I am just confusing myself now. All right, name. Okay. So we're going to move this.
I beg you to type Command-Z.
Command-Z. All right.
Keep going.
All right.
Keep going.
I'm really having a time today.
Nope. Now Command-Shift-Z. Oh, wait, no, that's actually right. Is that right? That's right. We did it. Okay, good. Now, this is the, we just want to move the closing
Yes, you just move the closing closer over here. Nice. I think I was very much confusing myself there. Okay. All right. Okay, so product color. That was the closing parentheses for product color. I swear I know what I'm doing. Okay, so color, which is slightly debatable given my situation there. But, okay, so now we got to give it a name. Let's give it orange or something like that. Color. Okay, and then we can have a closing.
Nice.
All right.
I know. Obviously, we need to rethink the pink, black, and orange colors, but that could be an ongoing brainstorm exercise. So there's a lot of, we're getting a lot of suggestion
squigglies.
Yeah, let's check out those.
All right, so let's start with this one. Okay, prefer const literals as parameters on immutable class. Prefer constant. Okay, all right. So we make this make this const here because dash blue. Whoop. Let's see here.
So the whole, so it's interesting. The whole thing can be const because the keys can be const.
Yeah.
They're constable. And the values can be constified.
Yes.
So we can just say
just the whole thing.
The whole map. Yeah, in front of the opening curly.
So everything here. Okay.
Nice. This looks great to me.
All right, there's this nice little squiggly here. Name.
Yeah, we've got to tell it again what our new generic type is. So
okay. So this here would essentially become product color.
Sure would.
And then down here, set color, cameo. So we have to swap this out up here, I think, to product color, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Where did I put it? Here. Product color. Here.
But you've
oh, that's
there you go. And then name the variable color. Nice. Awesome.
All right. Okay, that seems to be working for us.
Yeah, let's check out the page. Let's see how it's rendering.
All right, let's give that. Actually, I don't think I had to
restart that. I don't think we did have to. But it's okay.
Open it. There we are.
Can you believe it?
We get a nice little color picker now.
Yeah.
Sweet.
What would be really fun is if we could show the color.
In that, yeah.
Because that's why this is more interesting than using the string.
Yeah.
Also because our state management might be storing the valid colors as actual color classes. But that'll be a little tricky because then we'd have to expose a way to like get the color from each item.
Yeah.
And, our strings don't have a color.
Yeah.
So that isn't going to be a thing. So I think that's probably a little too noisy to wire into this widget. But, this widget could show the color in each of those boxes. We just have to figure out what to do for other types. Maybe we would, well, Khanh, do we want to go all the way? Do we want to do it? Do we want to show the colors?
It would be neat. I think it would be a cool exercise to take a look at.
Okay.
But in terms of time constraints, I'm not sure if we have.
Oh yeah, how are we on time?
Quite enough time to be able to hash that out. So I think we have about 20 minutes left.
Oh, we can do it.
We can do it. 20. We can do it.
Yeah, let's roll up our short sleeves and do this.
I'm estimating. I think we have about 20. Okay. So if we come in under that, it totally was my fault.
All right. It's been confirmed. Your guess was accurate. All right. Let's do this. I think this will be fun. So you mind if I drive for a little bit here?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So I have some thoughts. I'm going into the old lib folder, API, and product color. So that's where I am if you want to switch back to product color.
Okay.
So I think we basically need to have there's two things that the generic values that we want to pass to this option picker need to know how to do. Mm-hmm. They need to know how to like render themselves as a string. Mm-hmm. And now we're adding this new constraint to giving us a color. Mm-hmm. So what we can do is say, product color. I'm going to just put this in this file and let you move it later.
Okay. That will be future Khan's problem.
Right. So this code shouldn't go here. To do. Move this class. Now, let's make an abstract class, and this will be called an option. Mm-hmm. And that's that. And what does this option need to be able to do? Well, toString is already just known. Everything has toString, so we don't even really have to specify that. But let's just say that everything we do has to have a color. So like, that's the deal.
Yep.
Right? And then our class will now extend, our ProductColor class will now extend option, or extends, there we go. So this means that ProductColor is a valid option. So we'll keep that in mind. Now we pop back over to OptionsPicker. And we're gonna have to import from back a level or two or something, API. Is this right? I don't know how far back we have to go. API, do you know it?
API, so you wanna go
up. We're in lib UI
two more.
Shared.
So two.
So we'll go out of shared,
yep.
out of UI,
and
API,
then, yep.
and then API. Oh, I wasn't getting any autocomplete there.
Oh.
Anyway, for the type that we're going to use here, before we just said is T. T could have been anything. It could have been a color. It could have been a string. Could have been a float. Could have been some class of your own invention. But that does limit what you can do internally, because then you can only call functions that are available on everything, which toString was, which is why we were able to call toString further down in the function. But we could say here that this single option picker is some type T that extends option. And apparently this isn't where I put this. Where are you at, option? That's in ProductColor, which is in API.
Yep.
Which is
being exported by API.dart.
Why doesn't it like? Oh, option is probably a keyword or something, because it's coloring it purple on your screen. Let's call it instead a selectable option.
Yeah.
So renaming it selectable option in ProductColor.dart.
There we are.
And then coming back here and saying selectable option. Why doesn't it love us? What have we done?
Undefined class.
So we just don't have the import right, because it also thinks the import.
It says that we're not using it.
Oh, wait a minute. API. No, this does export ProductColor. What's going on? Do you see this in ProductColor?
So
open ProductColor on your machine. Did this even sync?
Here?
Oh, yeah, you have it. Oh, I didn't write the word class. Super important. Abstract class. We probably could have used option.
Classes can only extend other classes.
Abstract class. Where are you seeing that?
Oh, this is a selectable option.
Oh, thank you.
That would do it.
Great.
Here. No?
Yeah, the whole me not getting any linting is really exciting.
Select.
We're getting a live share, Aaron. Do you want to just make this change?
Yes, let's see. Selectionable option.
Selectionable?
Selectionable option?
Oh, I was going to say selectable, but that's okay.
Oh.
Selectionable.
Let's make it selectable here and then selectable here.
Great.
And what is this yelling about?
So
Non-constant.
let's we should be able to, let's put override on the color thing.
All right.
Because now technically we're
here. Let's see here. Wait, hold on.
Oh, where it's underlined there?
Oh, here.
Yeah. Just mark that with an override.
Okay. So here?
Yeah.
Override.
And now that should, okay, now let's see, what is the problem with ProductColor? We need a const constructor above.
Oh.
Okay, so if you head back up, yeah, you could just copy the class name, selectable option.
Here.
And then in the body, type const, paste, parentheses, semicolon. Great. So a class can only have a const constructor if its parents have a const constructor.
Makes sense.
Okay, so now go back to the options picker, and selectable option is now a beloved class. Great, it does help to write valid code. So selectable option means, we were already using toString, but if we scroll down to the build method of the state class.
Here.
Yep. Here you've added a padding widget. So do you mind if I change this to a container? which still takes a padding widget,
Mm-hmm.
but also takes a color,
Mm-hmm.
which will now be the option, which is T. So this
T
is
dot.
so it's our key
Mm-hmm.
dot color. And how does this work? Assuming it does. It doesn't yet. Property color can't be unconditionally accessed because the receiver can be null. Well, that's silliness. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
No, it still doesn't like us. The getter
Wait,
color isn't defined for the type T and object.
T key.
Oh, on OptionsPicker, we have to also specify that this T extends selectable option.
Oh, okay.
Extends selectable option. There we go. Oh. So now we're no longer worried about.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I think we didn't have to. So you can see here in our state definition, if we scroll up a tiny bit, this T it doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't need to specify that.
Okay.
So now let's scroll down here. Oh, maybe we did. Selectable. Oh. I wonder if we had to say extends here as well. Extends selectable option. There we go. That's making things happy. And now it knows that key.color is real.
Okay, I see.
So we just had to tell it everywhere. Everywhere where we defined a new T, we had to say, I promise, this will be of type selectable option.
Okay.
So now we've got a background color. And the other thing, though, so if we save this and we go back to product.dart, we have an issue because our original picker was using strings. And strings do not subclass options. So what we can do here is we'll go back to ProductColor, and we're going to make another class that probably doesn't belong here and can be moved.
We'll move it. Future Khan's problem.
And this will be product size, and this will extend the selectable option. And this will be constable. And this will just receive a name because we're not going to bother with colors for sizes. So that'll be this dot name, I guess. And then we have a final string name. And then we'll also need to do the override of toString. String to string. And we can just kind of say this. We'll use this little syntax because it's going to be, all we do is return the value. So now product size. Oh, and we need the color here. That's kind of the other thing. So override, color.
So we can have just color return just a default color, right?
Exactly.
And not have to think about it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, in this case, I know in OptionsPicker, I set the text to be, whatever the secondary color is. So I'm thinking in that case, then we could just set it to a blue, right? Like that same blue color.
Oh, sorry, say again?
So here I'm getting the secondary color from the color scheme.
Oh.
So in this case, actually, but if we're making the background color, I like that, yeah.
Okay.
Because I was going to set it as a different color, but I think in this case, if we make it white so that it fits in with the background, it'll look better.
Okay. We'll see it shortly.
Okay.
We'll find out. Okay, so now we basically can't use strings. I'm back in product.dart.
Yep, over here. Oh no, that's API.dart over here.
Yep. So we can't use strings anymore. We need to use product strings, which now, of course, or product string, sorry. And we'll need to import that. Oh, it is imported. Oh, product string. That is not even close to what the class was called. It was called product size. Nice. Okay, product size. Now set size, this function, if we scroll up, that will now need to take a product size variable.
So let me scroll up there so we can see here.
So set size will now need to take a product size. And all we do here is say, well, this is now size.name. And then the rest of this function can carry on. Now we scroll back down to the widget where we were creating it. and we have options.product.sizes. So we're going to need to turn
that into.
Yep. So let's use the old map method.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're going to use more generics. The map method returns a certain type, and we are going to turn those strings into product sizes. Then the map method takes a function, and that function internally is passed each element in the original list. The original list had strings. So this is a string name. And now we have to return an individual product size, which of course is just product size. And then we didn't even use positional arguments for this one because there was only one. So that's just name. Then lastly, this is still an iterable. So we just simply say toList and then figure out why it doesn't love us. Product size, the method. Oh, mapped because I see. So product sizes, this was not a list, it's a map. So we have to specify both things, which will be
the quantity.
Ints, yes.
Yep.
Now, this also means that here we returned keys and values. Actually, it's been a minute since I've used map on, hopefully we can just return a single key value pair here. Like this. Is it going to merge them? What do we actually return from our function? We return a single map ourselves. Yeah. So this will be the value, and the quantity will hold here. Okay. Now, what do we do to make you love us? The return type map product size int isn't a map entry product size int. Oh, okay. Well, I'm willing to product size. I've never actually made a map entry myself. Product size and int, I'm guessing, and maybe their positional arguments if we're really lucky. And then we don't need this.
Oh.
And then we don't need toList, I guess, because it's going to do that for us. All right, because I wrote toList when I thought the whole thing was a list, but it's a map. Okay, that line ended up being a little crazy. We can talk about it again real quick. Your widget product sizes was a map that you've maintained elsewhere.
Yeah.
But we want to be able to wrap each one of our things in our picker with a color. So we said anything that goes into the picker has to subclass selectable option. So we made product size, which is basically just a way to pass through white and make it happy. And so we're going to turn our map of strings and integers into a map of product sizes and integers. And so each individual pair out of the key value map was passed to our function. And for each one, we just coerced those into the appropriate map entry. And map entry is nice and mergeable into one big map. Basically, like an individual map, and then you bind them up, and then you have an atlas.
Yes.
Right. That's what's going on. And I don't know. We're maybe at risk of this working.
That would be a nice risk. All right. Let's save, and there we are.
So there, we'd have some tidying up to do.
Yeah, but it does work.
Right.
So in terms of functionality, I think it works. It works. You can see the colors and everything now. But of course, with the UI design and everything, that would need to be tweaked to get it exactly the way that we want it to look.
Something tells us that our designers would not. This wouldn't fly.
This is designer Khan's problem.
Right. But you can imagine, we might now need a text color thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because just the raw text in the background color isn't really sufficient anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's no single color of text that looks good on every background color. But we can add that to a selectable option.
Yeah. Or we could just say if there's the color specifically, we'd add just a little square in the toggle buttons, right? Like since it's just a widget, we could just have a square and then have the text with the color up above. So that way we don't have to consider the contrast between the text and the background color.
Well, so I both like that idea and would point out that that will work wonderfully for the colors,
but not for the
less wonderfully for the sizes.
So in that case, I wonder if it would make sense to say, like, what if, like, say colors, like, say the example colors like null or something like that, right? Like, can we check to see if, like, there's if it doesn't have a color, then, like, don't set it.
We could say, like, if T is a subclass of selectable option, then grab its color, otherwise don't. Yes, something like that could absolutely be done. But I don't think we'll have the time to wire that up now. But yeah, no, you are right. That could be done.
Okay, that would be go on the back burner maybe for next time if we want to extend the selector here.
Yeah, that's interesting. If we basically check if the color is null and then actually more radically evolve the UI based on what you find, whether or not the color is null. That's a really interesting idea. I like that. And I think it will be a great addition for the next release.
Yes.
Of this app.
Hey, but we got it done though. We got things wired up and it works. You were right. We did get it done.
Can you believe it? All right. Well, so in summary, we added generics to our select. When we started, it was called size picker. Yeah. And now it's option picker. And what the option is became generic, but it extends this selectable option because we know that our drop-down widget has some requirements of what it wants you to pick between. Those include having a color.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited. We can extend it now. Like we were talking about the payment processing methods. Like we can have show their logos now instead if we want to have like an image or something like that. So that'd be cool.
Yeah. Now, one thing you can do is make your widgets so generic that they're actually like more complicated and they really should have just been separate widgets. So this is a little bit academic. You know, I don't know if we would actually want to show the colors in this way.
Yeah.
But I think what the UI you were just talking about with the square off to the side, if and only if the color is not null, I think that would work really well. Currently, the state of it right now is academic. But you could keep cramming more options in there and then eventually have this kind of Frankenstein widget that is just kind of very hard to make sense of down the road.
It sounds like you just described my build method before I refactored. But yes, I understand. I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, all of our build methods as we start out in Flutter. But I think that will probably do it for this episode. Any closing thoughts on your end, Khanh?
No, thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate your help with refactoring. And like, I've learned so much just in the 2 episodes from the Boring Show. So it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be back and also in studio again soon.
Oh my gosh, fingers crossed. I can't go back. I can't go back, Khanh. All right. See you, everybody.
All right. See ya. Bye.